All right, we're back for part number 4. This is chapter number 5 of CSIS 2200, Managing Information Systems. We left off with virtual private networks, or VPNs, which they're referred to as. And this is something I think all students should really have a basic understanding of. A VPN is virtual, so it's basically you connecting to a server, but in a virtual private network. So if you were sitting at Douglas College, that would be a physical network. It wouldn't be a virtual private network. So why these are so useful is you can see from the graphic down here on the bottom that if you're accessing your email or Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Skype, or what have you on the internet, by setting up what they call a session between your client, which is you, and the server, which is one of these groups out here, you're setting up in a virtual environment, which means that you're virtually in a different location. So hackers don't know where you are, or if they do find out where the virtual network is, it could be that you're in another country or in a different location. So it really gives you an extra level of security and privacy. So if you're concerned about online banking and you're really hypersensitive to that, you might want to consider installing a virtual private network. The one I use is called ExpressVPN, and it's about $2 per month, $2 to $3 per month. And there's other ones out there. There are some free ones out there, but of course with free, they won't give you access to certain servers, or it's got a limited speed of how fast you can transmit the information, etc. VPNs are more popular in the United States or in China because the governments in those countries are regulating the services and information that these companies provide. Like I've said I think in the last video series in chapter 4 with your privacy, VPNs give you an extra layer of privacy, hence the name. And in the United States, if you were to connect to a site, let's say one of those free video streaming sites, and you start watching movies, the internet service provider in the United States is obligated to provide the company with the clients and what they watched, giving the companies a case against the individual. So to help circumvent that, a lot of people in the United States, they create VPNs. That way the companies don't know even where they are. So they can pretend that they're in another country when they're in the United States and they're accessing this information. So they're protected. So there's a lot of positives that you can use for VPNs, but then again, VPNs also used by criminals because it makes it harder to find a criminal as well. But it's just a great way of securing your information. And whenever you have a session between the client and a server, if you do it through a VPN, it adds an extra layer of security that's more than likely that you're not going to be identified. Connects you to that organization. So a lot of companies are setting up VPNs or virtual private networks as well, because even if you're at home and you're doing a remote session, so let's say a lot of us are working at home now, we're going to school from home, and we're communicating with the school, the information potentially could be compromised with a hacker. If you put a VPN in place, your information is not going to be as easily hacked. It adds such a higher level of security if you add a VPN to that. I got a link. I think this picture right here is a link. You guys can have a look at this. And there's a video here explaining what the VPN is and how it works in a little more detail. I'd highly encourage you to have a quick look at that because it really explains it in more detail. I think a lot of students are using that. Like another one in China, when I was in China, I couldn't access Google or YouTube. A lot of websites were blocked that I needed access to because I use that for my communication. So if I'm in China, I could use my VPN to say that I'm in Canada connected to these. And with that, it would allow me certain access. So a lot of information that in China to get out, they're using different VPNs to do that. So it gets around the government regulations. They call it the Great Chinese Firewall. All right, let's go back into the presentation here. All right. So when data is transmitted, if you have an SSL certificate in your browser that connects to the server, the data that's transmitted is encrypted, and that encryption is so. I think it's right now it's a 256-bit encryption. So it goes through this 256 different on and offs before it sends the data out. So it comes out in a very random, incoherent way. All the data is encrypted. So there's protocols on how to do that. And a protocol is just an agreed upon set of rules that two people use to communicate with. So there's a protocol called the two tunneling protocols, and this is used when you're wanting to have a secured session. So if you're not using a virtual private network, you could use what they call a layer 2 tunneling protocol, or L2TP, which allows two people to communicate basically by encrypting their data, sending it to the server, and then decrypting it to understand it, and then going and reversing that process to return the information back. So there's different protocols out there that we use to encrypt our data. And these are a few right here. The most common that you'll see is HTTPS, and that is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So when you're on the internet, you're transferring text, hypertext, lots of text, but you're doing it in a secure way. If you don't get the S at the end, that means that you're sending data in normal or natural state. So when I type in ABC, it goes to the server as ABC. But if I add an extra SSL layer to this protocol stack, it will encrypt that into 256 bits and then send it very highly encrypted. So whenever you're at your bank, always make sure that you've got a secured socket layer. You'll see that in the URL bar at the top of the browser. Again, that's this one up here. So if you go to any browser, you'll get some kind of a padlock or a key or something like that. If it doesn't show, then it's probably not secured. And I think that the site that I showed you before was those hacking sites. So if you go into a hacking site like google.ca, and it's going to crash my computer again, but if I go here, it opens up and, it redirected me. This is interesting. This is a completely new site now. So it's asking me, do I want to allow their hacking site here access to my computer? Even though it's secured, this is a good lesson, because I know that this is probably not a valid site. And if you look at the URL, look at well, first of all, look at the URL, social survey online, and it wants, I'm going to block that, but I don't know, it still might have actually sent the information. So there's no way to turn this off. Like there's no X here. I can't get rid of it. And it looks like a legitimate Walmart site, but I mean, I got there through google.ca with 2 O's. So definitely want to shut that down. It looks like a hacking site. My point there is that you definitely want to have the secured socket layer when you're communicating on the internet. Data encryption, again, just carrying this on, is basically just taking your native or natural plain text and scrambling it, or making it into some kind of ciphertext that no one can read. And I've got a link here if you guys are interested. There's a brief course by Khan Academy. I would encourage you to have a quick look at that. And it kind of explains how you can, let me see here, is it trying to open that one up? No, Khan Academy. I think the link was there, but let's see here. I'm not sure why it's not opening up. You guys might have better luck on yours. I think since I connected to that Google site, it's actually crashing my computer. All right. So anyway, we're getting close here. I'm going to try to fix my computer. All right, I'm back. It looked like that Google site had crashed my PowerPoint. So that just goes to show you start playing around with that stuff and how it can impact your computer. All right, we're talking about data encryption and rules for encryption. I guess known as an encryption algorithm. An algorithm is just a set of step-by-step sequential rules that need to be followed in order to accomplish a particular task. And let's see here. Some of the data encryption algorithms, as I mentioned, is that secured socket layer that gives you that little lock on your browser. There's an older one, this transport layer security, or TLS. You probably won't see this as much. It's a security protocol that's at a different layer when transmitting information, usually over public networks. Now, there's how does the encryption algorithm actually work? So asymmetric encryption uses two keys: a public key known to everybody, and then a private key that we have ourselves. And how it kind of basically works, I'm trying to think of a way of kind of explain how that could work. So I did a kind of a simulated model inside of PowerPoint here. And here's how it kind of works. So if I'm sending data from Alice's computer to Bob's computer, what it does is it takes Alice's public key and it combines it with her private key. Okay, so it takes that key, the public key, and it sends that private key over to Bob's computer. And now Bob has a private key that nobody knows and combines it with Alice's public key. So it encrypts it, and then it sends back the combined key back to Alice. So how it works now is Alice has the same key combination as Bob does. And that's basically how it works. So now that they both have the same key, now they can start transmitting data encrypted back and forth. So all servers kind of work like this, whether you're the client and this is the server. If you're a web browser and you're connecting to your email or to your bank account, you're going to send a public key to the bank. The bank is going to put in their private key, and they're going to send a combination key back to you so that you can communicate with each other. And that's kind of basically how it works. All right, well, I think I'm going to cut it off there. We've got 4 parts to this series already. I'll let you guys go through the rest of the PowerPoints. Definitely read the chapter. There's a lot of nuances that I haven't covered. I've given a lot of my examples to help supplement the sort of the concept of what we're doing in this chapter. But and also definitely do the LinkedIn Learning course that I've outlined, the Security Plus, because it gives you guys a better or deeper understanding of what needs to take place within a company's managing information system to protect the data. And again, that course will give you a badge on your LinkedIn profile, so companies will see that you've taken a Network Security Plus. It always looks really good on a resume to have security knowledge. Companies like this, they want to know that their employers understand security threats and issues and how to avoid them and recognize the different types of them that are out there. All right, so I'm going to cut it off there, and I will see you guys next week in Chapter 6.